Today, we have a couple of stories, including one about an entitled mother who abandoned her daughter years ago, and her daughter has the opportunity to take sweet revenge on her now. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. 28F, 35. My fiancé left his apartment to his ex-wife, 38F, and he told me that our relationship is over if I approach the subject again. My fiancé and I met about 3 years ago. He proposed a year ago. That's when we moved in together. Everything has been wonderful with our relationship. He is kind and gentle and very caring and amazing. Before me, he was married and their marriage ended 5 years ago. He never speaks about his ex-wife, but they're civil and seem to be on good terms. They have a daughter together who is almost 6 and lives with us on alternate weeks. The co-parenting is going well. As I said, my fiancé never speaks about his ex-wife. He never mentions her. I was curious in the beginning and asked him several times to know more about his marriage and previous life, but all he ever said is that they were incompatible. I'm not as curious anymore. The only problem I have is that my fiancé left her his big beautiful 4-bedroom apartment in the city that he inherited from his father, even if they had a prenup. We live in a much smaller 2-bedroom apartment that isn't in the city. Since we have my 1/2 the time, I felt it was odd that he just doesn't take his apartment back. Also, he left her his Porsche, which she never uses since she lives in the center of everything. The car is also his. I never really talked about it before because I was just the GF when my fiancé proposed. I started planning and thinking about our future, and I feel that now I have more to say about our finances. I started talking about us maybe taking his apartment back. We are 3 now and we are planning more children. She is single and she has a good job. I don't think she is my husband's responsibility anymore. We don't have CS or an alimony system here, a progressive European country. Whenever I brought up the subject, he changed it. He said we were doing fine or that we would manage or move to a bigger apartment once we have more children. It frustrated me greatly, but he was evading the subject. Even if we moved, it would never be to an apartment like the one his ex lives in, rent-free. I tried to understand why he gave her everything, but no one had any answers for me. My soon-to-be sister-in-law is as confused and actually upset that he would just give her everything. So last Friday, I was the one to leave my stepdaughter to her mother because my fiancé was working late. I asked her if she could give us back the apartment since we are 3 and that I'm about to be his wife. She was a bit flustered, so I apologized to her, but she said that I didn't need to apologize and that I was right. She agreed that my question was reasonable. When I got home, I told my fiancé what happened. I felt that he got very angry, but he just told me that if I ever brought up this subject again, it was over between us. I started crying and asked why, but he didn't elaborate. He just said that if I ever brought up the subject, it was over between us. Very cold and calm. He went out and he came home 3 hours later. His ex apparently told him that she was fine with moving out because he told me that if she did move out, it was over between us. I don't know what to do now. I'm confused. He is the only one who is against this idea, and he probably wants me to convince his ex to stay in his apartment. I never meant anything malicious, but her living for free in my soon-to-be husband's home is just weird. What can I do now with this mess? I don't think my request is that out of the ordinary. We are a family now and soon on paper too. The ex is successful and she could afford something smaller for her and stepdaughter. I don't know, please don't be judgmental, I really need help. The top replies. Honestly, you're going to get a lot of wild speculation in these comments, but no one on Reddit actually knows why your fiancé reacted that way. He could have some deep, dark secret that he's covering up, or he could be angry that you're making demands about an arrangement that is between him, his ex, and his child. The fact is, you are not a party to this agreement. If you can't live with that, then walk away from the relationship. The second reply. You shouldn't have gone behind his back. You have less rights to the apartment than anyone else in this story, and it isn't your place to demand for what he freely gave. Also, it doesn't sound like your fiancé is willing to share much of his life with you, e.g. what happened with his marriage or why he's supporting her. I would be more concerned about that. Third reply. You shouldn't have gone behind his back. You have fewer rights to the apartment than anyone else in this story, and it isn't your place to demand for what he freely gave. Also, it doesn't sound like your fiancé is willing to share much of his life with you, e.g. what happened with his marriage or why he's supporting her. I would be more concerned about that. The original poster updates. I don't know if it is okay to comment here. Okay, so a friend of my fiancé, the wife of his best friend, recognized my post and contacted me. My fiancé is, probably, still in love with his ex or has love for her even if it is not romantic. He cheated on her and she chose not to expose him for the sake of their daughter. But this is why he gave her everything. Because she didn't ruin his reputation, and now that she wants to move out he is upset because I'm the reason. Thank you, Kay, for telling me all this. I don't know what to do now. Should I confront him with this? I love him very much. He is my whole world. Now I at least know why he doesn't want to talk to me about his past. Second story. Dealing with my ex-in-laws after my ex's suicide. Going to try to keep this not too long. My ex, 31 meters, and 28F, had a terrible relationship. He was abusive, cheated on me all of the time. We have a 4-year-old daughter together. I met my now boyfriend, 34 meters, at work. We got very close but weren't doing anything. I then found out my husband had cheated on me yet again with some girl. I decided to go for it with my coworker and eventually left my ex-husband. I realized my life didn't have to suck. My ex lost it when this happened and tried to make my life as miserable as possible. Texted boyfriend and I constantly threatened us, showed up different places we were. Told everyone what a horrible person I was and tried to get me fired. I left him about 8 months ago. I tried to make the divorce as painless as possible but he would never sign anything, so we were still technically married when he died. Almost 2 months ago now he committed suicide. This was pretty shocking to everyone. He had threatened suicide more times than I could count, but I never actually thought he would do it and assumed it was him just trying to manipulate me and keep me from leaving. His mother and a few other members of his family hate me now. They blamed me for the divorce and now blame me for the death of their son. I get paragraphs at least once a week blaming me for cheating on him and leaving him. She has been saying absolutely horrible things to me. I have been understanding so far. She just lost her son, but I am almost at my limit. I gently remind her of everything her son did to me. She knows, but she just makes excuses and blames me. My boyfriend has been great through all of this and dealing with everything. They can't stand him either, of course. He is great with my daughter. I am not trying to keep my daughter away from her family, but I also don't want her to grow up with this romantic version of her father and think that I killed him or whatever nonsense they will tell her. When his mother texts me, it takes me at least an hour to calm down before I can text her back without cussing her out. It is incredibly stressful. I want to deal with this situation in the best way for my daughter and have refrained from starting any BS with them, but how long do I keep taking this? My worst fear is my daughter being poisoned against me. She has recently been seeing a child therapist, but she doesn't understand what happened. I need advice on dealing with this. How to handle it. The top replies. I get it's difficult, but his parents raised an abuser and they exhibit abusive behaviors themselves. Please do not leave your daughter with these people. You need to set boundaries and say that you are done taking the abuse, and if it doesn't stop you are going to cut contact with them, as it's your right as the child's mother to not let abusive people around your child. If it persists, just block them because this isn't acceptable and this isn't healthy for your child. Also, don't delete any of these abusive texts because you need evidence of their behavior, and any other signs of abuse you need to document. Second reply. Communicate with the ex's family only in writing. Let them know that unless they can stop haranguing and blaming you for your ex's choice, they won't have access to you or the grandchild because you don't want your child to internalize all this rancor. And then ignore them until they can act in a civilized manner. You'll be doing what's best for your child in the long run. If they're this heated and blaming you so vehemently, they'll end up trying to alienate your child from you, which does a lot of emotional damage to a kid. Third reply. It's nice that you don't want to keep her from them, original poster, but they're not safe people. Your job is to protect her, not to preserve all of her family connections at all costs. Send his mother, and anyone else who harasses you, a cease and desist letter through certified mail. You can pay a lawyer for their time to draw one up or just Google templates online. It's pretty easy. If they persist, get the police involved. This is bad for you and it's bad for your daughter, original poster. You need to put your foot down and call it what it is. Third story. Am I the idiot for not paying for my mom's surgery even though I have money for it? 35F. I lost my father very early when I was 5 years old. A few months after his death, my mother married her a guy named John. John already had 2 teenage boys and he didn't want to raise me because he never wanted to be a girl's father. My mother, like a good mother, abandoned me with my aunt and took my brother, 8 by the time, with her to live with her husband. John was a man with a lot of money and he always spoiled my mother and brother, but he never bothered to get me even a Christmas present. My mother didn't do anything for me either. She came to visit me once a month and didn't even call me at Christmas or New Year. I always called, but many times she didn't answer. My aunt was a woman who couldn't have children. Because of that, she and my uncle raised me as if I were their daughter, not missing anything for me. Even without much money, I accumulated some money from my job I had during high school and I earned a small amount from my aunt which was enough for me to pay for my college. At the time I graduated in computer science and went to work in a good company earning a great salary, but 8 years ago I received a much better job offer in a large company, one well known for having great hardware products. In that time, I accumulated a lot of money and helped my uncle and aunt renovate their house and I always sent them a nice amount even if they told me to spend it on myself. I currently live alone in a great apartment with an estimated value in the millions. Recently my mom called me on my Instagram. I post a lot of pictures of trips and fancy places I go, it's not too hard to find me. She asked if we could meet to talk and reevaluate our relationship to forget the past and move forward as mother and daughter. I have a soft heart so I took it. I thought it would be an opportunity for us to talk and finally create the bond I always wanted. We made an appointment at a restaurant downtown and met there. When we got there she hugged me, kissed me on the cheek and said she missed me. We talked about my life and when I asked how hers was going, she started to talk about how bad she was. Apparently she divorced John and my brother didn't want to keep her as she is now poor. To make matters worse, she lives on a pension from John and has serious heart problems. After a while, she asked if I could pay for a surgery she needed. The surgery was quite expensive, quite a lot. I told her I wouldn't pay as I wouldn't feel good doing that. She yelled at me in the middle of the restaurant, said I was a terrible daughter and that I was letting her die even though I could pay for her surgery. I left there very embarrassed. When I told my aunt, she said it was my decision but remarked that I have plenty of money to pay and that it wouldn't affect me financially. I don't want to do this cause she never have been a mom to me, but I need to ask. Am I the idiot? The top replies, not the idiot. Your mom didn't want a relationship with you. She wanted your money, and she would have expected you to support her for the rest of her life. The second reply, not the idiot. Today it's surgery, tomorrow it will be recovery, then rent, bills, lifestyle, vacations, then home care. And you will end up restricting your lifestyle for someone who threw you away so she could have the lifestyle she wanted. If she pops up again, tell her you are saving your money to help the people who raised you. You owe her nothing. The third reply, how dare she? She abandoned you as a child for some bloke she had just met, not only because he didn't want kids, but because he didn't want a daughter. For that reason, she separated you from your brother and ignored you. How she has the audacity to ask for anything is beyond me, and I will never understand why people like her think that screaming and calling someone names will make others change their mind in wanting to help. Would you help me if I needed money? No, because you don't know me and I'm not owed anything by you. That's the same way I see her relationship to you. I'm so sorry you had to go through this, but I'm glad you had a lovely aunt to raise you. The fourth story. Am I the idiot for deciding to watch my grandson over my son's dogs? I'm female 52. My husband, male 56, and I have 2 daughters. They are both great kids that are successful, accomplished, and I couldn't be more proud, but lead very different lives. We all still live in the same area, the area I raised them at. One, F25, travels extensively for work and has an on-again off-again boyfriend, and the other, F28, is married and has a 3-month-old son. My daughter with the 3-month-old works full-time and is going back to work as her maternity leave is ending. I work part-time but offered to watch my grandson at my house while they are at work. I'd quit my job, which I'm okay doing. We recently had a sit-down about watching him and my daughter and husband gave me a list of rules. One they stressed was no animals around the baby. That one was a bit of a surprise and conflicts with the needs of my other daughter. I asked why they cited safety. I accepted them because I want to watch my grandson and be involved in his life. My other daughter that travels for work has a pair of dogs. When she is out of town, she drops the dogs off with me. The dogs can be a bit rambunctious but otherwise behaved. She is usually gone 3 days at a time, usually midweek. So the time that I watch the dogs would conflict with my grandson. I've been watching her dogs for 3 years. I've informed her that I want to watch my grandson, and because of that I can't watch the dogs as much anymore. Well, she did not take that news well and flipped out. Says it isn't fair that she now has to find other means to take care of the dogs and it is financially affecting her. I told her I can stop by and check on them in the evenings, but I won't have the time to properly take care of her dogs if they were left at her place. She hasn't spoken to me or her sister in the past week. So was I the a-hole here? The top replies, yes, you are the idiot for accepting an unreasonable condition to help one of your children at the expense of the other. Would your daughter really have found other accommodations to watch the baby if you stood fast on the no pets rule? Doubtful. Most animals get along well with children. If nothing else, you can find a way to keep them apart if need be. You chose the needs of one daughter over the other, and seem surprised that she's upset about it. I have a feeling the daughter with child knew that you watched these dogs, which is precisely why she made up this rule. You can and should tell this child that you have reconsidered, and can't abide by the no pets rule, so she'll have to find other accommodations when you are going to watch the dogs, or live with them. Don't be bullied by your daughter, just because you want to see the grandchild. Second reply. Agree with this 100%. Baby daughter is manipulating you intentionally at the expense of dog daughter. You shouldn't allow this. They are not going to pay for expensive infant daycare when you are offering to watch their infant for free, and even quit your job to do so. This will cause a permanent rift in your family if you don't fix it now. Third reply. Original poster. You're not the idiot for not wanting to look after someone else's dogs. You were willing to jump in and help when she got the job. That's really gracious. Except for the simple fact that you don't want to and have no responsibility to take care of the dogs. It's been years and dog mom hasn't cared to make any plans to take her responsibility of you. You even offered to go check on them in the evening. That's the same amount of attention they would be getting if she was working locally. On top of this, you gave her weeks' notice, and that's more than fair. I rehabilitate dogs with behavioral issues and would never suggest having dogs that haven't been trained and adjusted to babies around them. I've had dozens of dogs getting dropped with us because people never thought they would hurt a child. It takes one scratch or nip and a kid loses an eye, or worse. This especially for ones described as rambunctious. You're grandparents and want to play with your grandchild, rather than feeling obligated to be responsible for others' pets. That definitely doesn't make you the idiot. It makes you loving grandparents. Fifth story. I, 29F, found an anonymous chat app on my 27M husband's phone and don't know what to do now. I, F29, am recently married to my Japanese husband, M27, and we live in Japan. We've been together for 4 years, married for 2 months. Yesterday, we needed to scan some documents at the local convenience store, and because my husband's phone data was running out, he took my phone to use and gave me his. I have never once not trusted my husband. We are very close mentally, though physically we've recently been lacking due to both of us gaining some weight and losing self-confidence. We've discussed dieting and working out together and started this year. Anyway, when my husband gave me his phone to use in case we needed to get in contact while he ran out to scan the documents, his phone was unlocked in front of me and I saw an app called Lemon. A quick Google search told me it was a kind of anonymous chat app, but it felt a bit like a hookup app from the reviews. Despite having never doubted my husband for the past 4 years, I opened the app on his phone, feeling guilty the whole time, and was met with at least 100 messages to women he has sent over the past 2 years. All of the messages were started by him complimenting their icon pictures, saying they were beautiful, or something along that nature, but the conversations were very short, usually just with the girl saying, "Thank you," and then not replying again. A couple messages stood out though. In one of the messages, a woman had asked him about meeting, but he didn't reply to it, and in another message he was telling a woman how he wished she didn't have plans for her vacation. The implication felt like he was wishing to meet her. I also saw one chat from 3 weeks ago where he had sent a picture of his face, a picture he and I had taken together, and I was just cut out of it, and the woman responded with a picture of her breasts. My husband had kept messaging her without acknowledging the boob picture. The whole thing just felt so strange. At this point, I felt like I was in a nightmare because I had no idea what to think. His profile had no personal information except his age and his profile picture was blank, so I had no idea what he was gaining from the app and I couldn't process what I was seeing. When my husband came home, I set the phone down in front of him with the breast picture open and he started trying to explain with a bunch of excuses. English is not his first language, but he speaks fairly well and I was just crying at him while asking what those messages were. Throughout a 3-hour yelling/crying session, my husband explained that he didn't see himself as attractive and he was just trying to look for validation from these women. I am perhaps a slightly above average looking white woman living in Japan, which naturally makes me get some attention, and he said he often feels inferior when we go out together because men he talks to always compliment me. This apparently has made my husband feel less and less deserving. He said that he wanted to figure out why I'd chosen him when he felt he wasn't attractive. But his profile didn't even have his picture, so I don't understand how this app could validate anything for him. I, myself, have told my husband on numerous occasions how much I am attracted to him. I often compliment his features and call him handsome, and I have always felt like I'm bragging by being able to tell people about him. Up until seeing those messages, I loved him with all my heart and thought he was the most attractive person in the world. I asked him why me saying those things wasn't enough and why he hadn't communicated more with me instead of using such an app, and he just couldn't answer. 2 years ago when he started using this app, we were moving in together. He always calls us a family, says he loves me, etc., etc., so I can't understand what he gained from this app. He assured me he has never once cheated since we've been together, and while it's true that the messages on this app seem to support that, I feel like all the trust I've had in him is broken. I just brought him to the US in December to meet my family and we had big plans together. I saw our future with kids and my heart is telling me to stay with him, but my head is so confused and I feel so hurt. He called out sick from work today, something that is not common in Japan, because he told me I am the most important thing for him, and he wants to be with me and fix this if there is any chance of doing so. He has been nothing but apologetic and has been acting so ashamed since I found the messages yesterday, but I don't know what I should do next. Also, just as an aside, I downloaded the app and set up a profile with a picture of me wearing a mask just to see what the vibe was like. I've gotten more than 20 explicit messages or messages asking for X from Japanese men, and it's only been 12 hours. I showed these messages to my husband and asked him if it would feel like I was cheating were I to respond to them. Of course, he said yes and said he hadn't realized what it was like for women on the app. His own messages to women were not sexual, just complimentary, but the app definitely gives off hook UPS/flirtatious vibes. He said he really doesn't like that I'm getting such messages, and he doesn't like me having it. He, himself, has deleted the app from his own phone. Any thoughts or advice would be highly appreciated. I feel like I'm living in a horrible dream at the moment. The top replies, he's been cheating on you. I'm so sorry. I know of the app. An expat friend of mine, she still lives in Japan, used that app for solely hookup purpose. One of her ex-lovers she met there was a married Japanese man who claimed to be unhappy sexually in his marriage. He's likely to have cheated on you physically as well. You may want to get STI tested too, just in case. If he wants validation that he's still attractive, then he should be putting on his image there, too, yeah? He's still lying to you, in my opinion. He deleted the app as soon as he can, so you can't find more proof and has to rely on his information that is very questionable in truth. So in short, he's still trickle-truthing you. So sorry, original poster. The second reply. I think he's been getting something out of this and it's not validation for his looks as that excuse makes no sense as you said he doesn't even have a profile photo. I don't what his need here is but I don't think it has anything to do with you and I wouldn't be able to be with or trust a man who needed this kind of interaction.